Hello, my name is Samuel DERGEL, and you are watching CxO Interviews. Today, we have with us a very special guest, Matthew Owenby. Matthew is the CHRO at a company you likely have heard of called Aflac. Today, we're going to talk about a few things, but the major topic I'd like to talk about is how executives keep current, relevant, and ahead of the curve and add value to their organization. Now, I'd like to introduce to you Matthew.
Thank you for having me, Samuel. I appreciate it. Yeah, I am Matthew Owenby. I've been with Aflac for about 8 years, going on 9 years. I am the Chief Human Resources Officer and the Corporate Services Executive, which is sort of a lot of different functions. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Can you talk a little bit about what you've done education-wise over the last few years?
Several years ago, after almost 20 years in the function, you become really good at your job and your business. I was losing track of was, even with a well-developed network, the ongoing perspective that perhaps students of the trade and the craft that I'm in, consultants tend to have, and I just recognized that my knowledge base, while good and obviously with lots of experience, was getting a little bit dated. So I just felt compelled to go back and refresh that knowledge base at a fairly well-known university. Spent a few years there. And during that, Samuel, I liked it so much, and I was able to accommodate it into my schedule. It was a pretty intensive course of study that I decided to go back to graduate school, and I'll start that process in 2021, early 2021, and just continue my learning journey that I started, obviously, nearly 40 years ago. For me, it's really important to stay current and stay fresh. And I think the one thing you and I were talking about in our other conversation was, how do you stay current with big jobs, and how do you stay fresh, and how do you stay ahead of the consultants? And I have lots of friends that are consultants, so it's not about running faster than it's about running with them. They tend to have, sort of a myriad of sources of new information. And, you and I talked about the fact that it's very difficult for professional corporate people to practice their work. That they're in work, so you don't really have a time to practice it.
Where did you go, and what program did you go into?
The first program I went to was a program sponsored by the Wharton School, and it was all about talent management, and it was a talent management fellowship that they were sponsoring. So I went and completed that. It was very, very focused on updating HR professionals with the best thinking. Continued with the Wharton School in the general management program, what they call the GMP program, which was just a lot of updating of strategy and change management and global leadership and finance and accounting and governance and control and things that are really things that I've learned on the job, but because of my role, I'm responsible for board activities and board engagements. And so I just finished that program in November, and then towards the end of that program, I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm done with my education yet. And so I reached out to some contacts I had at Cornell, and they got me connected with a program there, and I applied and got in. Partially what I got from the previous program, Samuel, was just a huge network of people that clearly have the same view of adult education that I do. There's sort of a team effect there, but that's invaluable too. But the professors, that I don't want to turn this into a Wharton commercial, but they'd probably appreciate it. The professors that practice there, they are out practicing their trade in the business world. So they're not just sitting around thinking about books. They're actually not only writing books, but they're out developing new theories and theses and approaches. And I felt very, very blessed to be able to go there and benefit from those relationships, which now, I now have relationships with some of the best thinkers in the world, and that's invaluable. The first program was the Talent Management Institution Fellowship at Wharton, and the second program was a general management program at the Wharton School, which sadly, because of coronavirus, we're filming obviously in an age where there's coronavirus, had to end up being primarily remote, but they did an excellent job of delivering the final 2 classes. But for those that are interested in that, maybe Samuel will put a link to that program in the show notes.
How did you manage, your more than full-time job,
Right,
responsibilities with a serious educational commitment during that time?
You make time for what's important. You make time to exercise because it's important. You make time for relationships because they're important. And I think you probably actually exposed me to this idea several years ago. And one of the things you said was, you can't really go wrong investing in yourself. You can't really go wrong in focusing on how to improve your skills. And at that time, we were talking about taking on some additional responsibilities that I was about to take on. And you said, there's really no downside here. You're going to learn one way or the other. It'll turn out great. And if it doesn't, then you'll learn something from how it didn't turn out so well.
Could you give me an example of something that you learned in your education experience and you applied it in the corporate setting? I'd love to hear about that.
One of the things that we over the years have been working on is how to integrate our kind of talent management thinking across all the newly acquired corporations. The program was around talent management and refreshed ideas and really taking away some of the older, well-known, I'm not going to say them because they may be in use and it may hurt people's feelings, which I'm not going to do. They either don't fit the modern employee, or they don't fit the modern company, or they just don't fit. That lots of HR people, including myself, have been using and proudly using for decades. You should do what makes sense for your corporation and your culture and your people. And one size doesn't fit all. There are a lot of corporations that don't have a formalized performance management process, and for some strange reason, they tend to perform.
So what surprised you? You've been in the corporate world, very dedicated in the corporate world, and you dipped your toe into, modern business academia.
Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise for you?
The biggest and most kind of refreshing surprise, and I think, frankly, it has more to do with the university that I chose, is that how ahead and sort of forward thinking these academics at this university are. They are ahead around industrial psychology. They're ahead around consumer trends. And I'm talking about 5, 6, 10 years ahead of what we are experiencing today. One of the big advantages, I think, of anybody in a corporate environment is staying 1 or 2 days ahead. It's a miracle to be, a week ahead. And if you can start getting exposed to ideas that are 3, 4, 5 years out, well, you can start putting them in the context of whatever solution that you need to deliver at your company now. Frankly, I think that's the duty of corporate leaders, is to be able to, Jack Welch would say, see around the next corner.
Let's talk about consulting in corporate America. The beauty of startups is that they have nothing holding them back. They can create it on the fly, afford to fail, minimum viable product, all those things to be able to move their business in a certain way. But a big organization, a successful organization, has to be a little bit more thoughtful as it moves forward. How can executive education for the leaders of the business minimize the need for consultants?
I think, unfortunately, it probably can eliminate it. It's all about time. Most corporations feel as though they don't have any time. I work for a corporation that believes that our role as corporate leaders is to perpetually manage this company forever,
right?
Without us. And so when your time frame is long, then your desire to get new information from whomever, whether it's a consultant or Matthew or Samuel or whoever, is a bit different.
I think the final question is how has COVID changed you?
It definitely inspired my next educational journey for sure. And basically what it did is it told me, and you may find this funny or interesting, is that I have a lot of bandwidth. So if you give me 24 hours, I can make the best of it. And since a lot of us are still like living at work physically, what I find is that if I can just, organize my time properly and be disciplined about it, there's almost nothing I can't accomplish. And, you take for granted that, these little stops and starts in the day, the interruptions and conversations. And so you have to be very, very disciplined about managing your day, or the day never ends and you get exhausted and you get mentally tired and you just can't get anything done. So it's reinforced a skill that I already had, which was fairly high discipline, of how valuable, the discipline in your life is.
I want to thank you very, very much for this enjoyable, pleasurable, educational experience. We're talking to you today, recording it on camera, and sharing it with a few others that will find this interesting.
I hope so.
Matthew, thank you so much.
Thank you for your friendship. I appreciate you, and thanks for having me.
Likewise.